Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Wired Gaming. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully you are all good and are having a good day. It's been a good weekend. As you may have seen, on Friday we released something from a game called Hostile Mars. Now we have something a little bit special from those again today. We have a developer Q&A. These guys have done a Q&A over at the PAX's Rising Twitch streams, and it was pretty cool. Luckily enough, I was invited to be a part of that Q&A, so I want to give a massive shout out to Jade, the community manager, and Jake, the developer of Hostile Mars. Loads of funky stuff was said, loads of questions were answered. If you do want to check out the full stream and the full Q&A session, then head over to the PAX Rising Twitch channel where you can find it there. Here is just a little compounded brief and overhaul of it with a few key elements that I think people would like to know. So, check this out and enjoy.
So, what is Hostile Mars?
Yeah, so it's an open world base builder focused on automation and factory building. It mainly relies on item progression, going through and unlocking technologies to get better weapons and machines and turrets and traps, and then a large component of the game is upgrades. So all of the turrets and traps and weapons, machines, walls, everything is upgradable. So as you progress through the enemy waves, which the main component is a wave-based enemy defense, as you progress through the waves, you need to upgrade turrets and traps and automate certain processes so that you can keep up with the waves, because when the game gets to the later stages, the waves get pretty big, into the thousands at a time. And although it's a third-person shooter, you can go around and attack. It doesn't do much good later on with so many enemies. So it's kind of focused on planning a base that you can route all the enemies through your traps efficiently, because they all take power, and that's another big mechanic, is the power management of all of your base's components.
Okay, cool. Wired, you've delved into lots of survival games. Any experience with automation and factory?
A little bit, yeah. I played a little bit of Satisfactory. It sounds a lot like that, but a lot more fighting.
Yeah, that's the idea.
I like that. Definitely.
Yeah, that was one of the main inspirations, I guess, is Factorio and Satisfactory. I loved those games, but I like shooters a lot too. So
yeah, combine the best elements.
Mm-hmm. And one of the main things that's kind of a unique aspect of this game is that the main resource type, which normally in games, you have your iron ore and all your metals and resources. In this one, the primary source is the enemy scraps. So as you defeat enemies, they drop scraps, you pick them up, you process them, and they kind of turn into their own resource metal type.
So you get individual components. It's not necessarily craft a million, although you will have to craft some more stuff, I guess, from the stuff they drop.
Yeah, so everything that they drop, you can kind of convert them in the recycler to scrap metal, which is a base component. But also, every component that's dropped by an enemy is also used in at least one recipe or blueprint for a crafting item. So right now, it's just the scrap segments, which is kind of the equivalent to what iron ore would be. And then traditionally you have your blast furnace, which will convert your ores to your metals and things like that.
So what do you think? This is obviously maybe first time you've seen some actual live gameplay.
Yeah, it is. I do love the idea of being able to build a base to sort of path the enemies towards you as well. That way you can create pretty much anything you want. I like that idea.
Yeah, it offers a lot of creativity. And the map for this is custom made. It's not procedure generated.
Oh.
Its point of interest has all been custom made, I do believe, by Jake and stuff. So it's not procedure generated. And the map is pretty large, Jake.
Yeah, it's right now, for the demo that we are having for the weekend of PAX Rising Online, about a third of the map is available to walk around, and it's still under development and some of the areas are kind of locked out, but um, the early release will have a fairly large map.
Okay.
Originally, I did have procedurally generated maps, but because it's, which they do great for, normal landscapes and mountains and valleys and rivers and stuff like that. It looks amazing, but it just didn't feel organic with a Mars setting with
Yeah.
like canyons and cliffs and stuff like that. It was too hilly. So ultimately, I decided to do it manually by hand. I wish I could have done it the other way. It would have been a lot easier, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
But there is the benefits. We can put more different kinds of interests, points of interest, more interesting stuff going on, ruins and former laboratories and stuff. What is the story of Hostile Mars?
the story is the beginning. At the beginning, you see the player wake up at inside a wrecked spaceship, and they were coming to Mars to claim the land as a mining site. And on their way, they got attacked by a competing company that didn't want them to come and claim the land. So their ship got taken out. The player is not like a combat trained player, so a lot of the weapons and traps and things like that are kind of makeshift.
Home
Not
Alone style.
right, not weapons that military would bring and have like that.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Paint can at the top of the stairs and some marbles on the floor, kind of thing.
Right, yeah. And it's based on stages. So if I open the tech tree here, um, there's 6 stages in the full game, and the first stage is scrapped, and it's kind of the player getting used to taking different just pieces from the enemies, pieces from the environment, and throwing it together to make turrets and traps and stuff that it looks terrible and barely works. But um, the point is to get started, and it's kind of the introductory stage to teach the player how to go through the technology tree and how to play the game with all the different mechanics. And then in the iron stage, you kind of start to get into the real turrets and traps and machines and automation and delivery bots and stuff like that.
Nice.
I
That's
like the
quite a
idea
lot.
of stages. It makes
Yeah.
you feel like there's a sense of progression there as well. You're not just doing the same thing. You're getting something out of it each time.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
So I noticed you just started a wave, or you've got something going on there. You can choose when they start. There's never like a time that's going to run out no matter what.
Yeah, that's right. So the waves are player initiated, but you can turn on auto waves. So if you want them
Right.
to just keep coming, um, which I'll leave that on for a little bit because the first couple waves aren't too bad. But the reason for that is so that the player, if they want to, they can explore and look around the environment. You can also build and progress a lot just from the environment. The environment has a different type of enemies called wildlife enemies. So yeah, they have their own progression. You can pick up cell drives, which cell drives are what you use to unlock things in the technology tree. And so if the player is more of a explorer and just wants to check things out, you can still progress through the game like that. You don't have to be stuck at your base building and fighting waves.
I like the
demo,
variety here. The robots themselves. You've got like these
yeah,
guys rolling around, and you've got the sort of drone ones.
right. The concept on the enemies is there's 3 different types of enemies: ground enemies, hover bot enemies, and then combining type enemies. Which, if like combining type enemies, if they're all in the same position, they'll merge together and group up, and they get stronger. So it becomes kind of a rock paper scissors thing with your turrets and traps, because some turrets and traps will benefit the enemy types. So there's certain ways you can filter out the different enemy types. Like if you put a spike trap down, it will pierce through the ground enemies, but the hover bots, it kind of pops them up. So you can split them to a different level and then um, do different attacks on them that wouldn't benefit that type. And
Cool.
another instance that's easier to understand is like the combining enemy types. If they go over a frost trap or a trap that slows the enemy down, they're going to get stronger. So you want to avoid them getting close to each other and grouping up.
Gotcha. So you can't just sort of cheese too hard in certain areas.
Right.
Okay, that's cool. In terms of like guns, so you said you weren't towards the shotgun. How many guns do you plan on having, or how many guns are in the game right now?
Right now for the demo, there's 3. The early access game will have 12, and that will be most of them are your typical guns that you would expect: AR, submachine gun, sniper, long range rifle, pistol, rocket launcher, and then there's a few that are more physics based. So there's a magnet gun that pulls metal parts to it, kind of like a gravity gun, but only metal objects. So you can do interesting things with the enemies.
That sounds right up my street, messing around with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's that, and then there is a spike launcher which shoots a long spike into the enemies, and you can pin enemies together doing that. And when the spike is in the enemy, you can go and grab it like it's kind of like a javelin, and then smash it on the ground, and it'll destroy the enemy. Everything I'm trying to make it as intuitive as possible, to where you do something and you're like, oh, that'd be cool if I could do this. And I want that to be able to happen.
And you've got this is your home-based console, so this is like where everyone starts, and you get to craft the basics here.
Yeah, and a new feature that I added was the energy upkeep for the base. The energy that the base is using depletes over time, and you have to feed it energy cells to keep it going. And I need to keep an eye on that, because if it gets to 0, it's game over. But it alerts you before that. But it's also something I implemented like last week, so we're kind of trying that out. I'm
new feature.
I'm assuming the survival fans will really like it, and then maybe everybody else will hate it. I don't know.
I like that. I think it's quite good. It pushes you a little bit, makes it a little bit scary.
Yeah, there's a different feeling for sure when you're running around exploring.
Can you place the base in different locations, or is it a set area that you get to go to?
The home base is set, and a large reason for that is because of the custom environment. Everything, all the points of interest are intentional. It's there for a reason, and so it's kind of guiding the progression of the game. But you can expand anywhere. You can build anywhere you want to. So you could move your base, but the home base would be here.
Gotcha. Okay, that's pretty cool. You've got quite a big selection of robots here. How many, have you had at once attacking the base?
I've gotten up to just over a couple thousand at the same time.
Whoa!
I've tested up to 10,000, but I've gotten up to probably 2,000 with maintaining 60 frames a second.
That's impressive.
That is not.
And I can push that further, because obviously it's not optimized right now. There's still a lot of things to do, a lot of tech debt that I still have to kind of take care of, that were from things I implemented too quickly, or didn't fully flesh out the efficiency of it.
But that's pretty impressive.
So with the enemies, do they progress in level, or is it just in numbers, so you get higher numbers and not so many stronger ones, or do they progress in strength and numbers as well?
Mainly it's the volume, the number of enemies per round grows as the stage progresses, and then when each stage completes, the next stage, the numbers will ramp down, but the new enemies spawn, and they're a lot more difficult.
Okay.
Nice. And the idea is, though, that you're not meant to really do it all on your own. Like, the idea is to get efficient defenses and automation going, so it can help you.
Yeah, I did see something along the lines of you having little carriers that will go and pick stuff up for you, take it from A to B, and automate a lot of the loading processes as well.
That's right. Yeah. Instead of well, anybody familiar with factory games know that most of them are based on the conveyor belts, but in place of that, I'm using delivery bots. It's the same concept. It's just instead of mapping out the path, it's picking a start point and end point, and then telling it what to deliver, and then it kind of does it by itself.
Okay, cool. So that really separates it from other games that are, quite similar or have conveyor belts in it. So will the enemy droids target these robots, or are they just intent on destroying the home base?
Yeah, they won't mess with the delivery bots. Their primary concern is attacking home base. If they
Gotcha.
can't get to home base, they will attack the whatever wall is closest in front of them to their path to home base.
Okay, so in theory, you could box in the entire home base to give you that few minutes extra whilst they're trying to beat through it.
Yeah, and that's what most people try to do at the beginning. There, it doesn't work too. It works early on, even though it's hard to get that many panels early on. But eventually, there are robots that just take down walls in a single hit. So if you do block it off, it doesn't last very long
Okay.
Right.
because you'll have like kamikaze robots that will run into it and blow it up.
Gotcha. And these turrets are obviously got ammo and stuff in them, so you just you supply them. Is there ways to auto supply the ammo? Like, can you do production that makes the ammo and then puts the ammo straight into them?
Yeah, so all of that can be automated at some point. And I'll start to kind of build paths for these guys so that they can all get stuck in the same area.
Right. Is there a way to do you literally build corridors, or is there a way to explicitly guide enemies towards you?
Yeah, it's just based on how you build the walls. So the way the pathfinding works is it'll do traditional star pathfinding, and then so if say the base is completely blocked off, it'll attack whatever's in front of it going directly to the base. But if there is a path, and that could be through a maze of corridors, then it'll always take the path first.
Right.
So even though you can't control the pathing of the enemies, you can manipulate where they go pretty easily and predictably.
The look of them I really like Wides we were saying earlier about the colours and stuff from other games, but there's something bright about Hostile Mars.
Yeah, it's normally Mars games can be quite dingy, can't they? But it looks pretty. Everything looks nice and bright and vibrant.
Is there any plans to have like night cycles? Does Mars have night cycles, like a proper one?
Yeah, it does. There is plans on having a weather system, which also has night cycles, which would affect power production because solar panels are a big part of it.
Oh, nice.
But that's not implemented right now, and that'll probably be closer to early access.
Okay, cool. And obviously, we are very.